Let's find out together in the next hour, co-hosted here on Channel 1 by the International Labour Organization ILO and Fundación 11.
They have prepared something very interesting. They will present a publication, A Digital Economy for People with Disabilities, developed as a part of the Disability Hub Europe, a multi-stakeholder initiative led by Fundación 11 and co-funded by the European Social Fund. So a lot of great minds have worked together on this publication, and also participating in the session will be reference actors, including the Global Apprenticeship Network, the European Commission, the World Bank, the European Disability Forum, and the ONCE Social Group. At the end of the session, Stefan Trömmel from the ILO, the International Labour Organization, will be remotely connected from Switzerland and will have a few minutes of time to talk to Michael Fembeck about the topic that we will see in the presentation.
Hello to everybody. I'm Manuela Tomei, the Director Conditions of Work and Equality Department and the ILO in Geneva. I'm very pleased to be part of today, at which we are launching the latest publication of the ILO Global Business and Disability Network in partnership with Fundación 11 and the EU-funded the Hub project, entitled An Inclusive Digital Economy for People with Disabilities. This publication builds on another joint report by ILO, Fundación 11, and the ILO Global Business and Disability Network, which was launched in November 2019 at the conference, which was entitled Making the Future of Work Inclusive of People with Disabilities. Already in that study, we highlighted the key importance of digital skills for the jobs of today and the future. However, the pandemic has accelerated the expansion of the digital economy and further transformed the organization of work, with millions of women and men who shifted overnight to teleworking as a strategy to keep business afloat and maintain jobs while reducing workers' exposure to COVID-19 virus and containing the spread of contagion. The digitalization of the economy has brought plenty of new opportunities, but also unprecedented challenges that we need to fully understand and address in order to make the best of it. This was indeed one of the key messages that emerged from the Global Summit on the socioeconomic responses to the COVID-19 pandemic that the ILO convened last July, and that brought together heads of states as well as representatives from employers and workers' organizations from across the world. On that occasion, however, not much attention was paid to the specific circumstances of persons with disabilities. And what the publication that we are launching today is trying to do is precisely to fill that gap by raising awareness of the impact of the digitalization of the world of work on people with disabilities and identifying actions that will help shape a future of work in a more disability inclusive fashion. Indeed, as our Director General put it, a disability inclusive response to the socioeconomic impact of the COVID-19 pandemic and beyond is a better response for all. Our commitment to social justice and to the Agenda 2030 commitment to leave no one behind can only be achieved if we include persons with disability in a meaningful manner. This was very boldly stated by the ILO Centenary Declaration, which was adopted by the International Labour Conference in June 2019 to mark the 100th birthday of the organization. The declaration provides a very important compass to guide ILO's work in the coming years with the aim of building a more sustainable, productive, inclusive, and fairer future of work for all. It advocates a human-centered approach to development in which the inclusion of people with disabilities is a key ingredient. Although adopted before the pandemic, the declaration thrust and priorities remain highly relevant to dealing with the many challenges and opportunities brought about by the current pandemic. The ILO, as you know, has a long-standing commitment to persons with disabilities, which has been reinforced through our leadership role in the development of the UN Disability Inclusion Strategy back in 2019. And more recently, the governing body of the ILO has given further impetus and guidance to the work of the organization in this domain at its last session in November 2020, in which a policy and a multi-year action strategy were discussed and endorsed. The ILO constituents will have a very important role to play in building a digital world of work that is responsive to and inclusive of people with disabilities. And I therefore welcome the specific recommendations directed to them in the report, as well as the recognition of the centrality of social dialogue. I would like to finish by thanking all of our partners in this initiative for the excellent collaboration, and I would like now to ask Teresa Arroyo to take over. She will present the main highlights of the publication. Teresa, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Manuela. This is a pleasure for me to be here. Let me quickly share my screen. I hope all of you can see it. Okay, so as Manuela has said, today we want to present this publication, An Inclusive Digital Economy for People with Disabilities, which is a report developed by Fundación and the ILO Global Business and Disability Network, made within the framework of Disability Hub Europe, which is a project led by Fundación and co-funded by the European Social Fund. Well, the main purpose of this report is to increase awareness about the impact of a digital world of work on people with disabilities and to identify the actions needed to shape a future of work in a more inclusive way. It is also important to highlight that this document is a contribution to the 2030 agenda, as Manuela has highlighted before, and the Sustainable Development Goals, especially Goal 8, the Target 8.5, which states that by 2030, is to achieve full and productive employment and decent work for all women and men, including young people and persons with disabilities, and equal pay for work of equal value. So this is, we think, a relevant contribution. Well, as we have already said, that in November 2019, the Fundación and the ILO GBDN launched this publication, as you can see in the left side of the slide, making the future of work inclusive of people with disabilities, that analyzes the key trends of the future of work from a disability perspective. Processes such as the technological revolution, demand for new skills, cultural and demographic changes, as well as the climate change, present challenges and opportunities for the inclusion of people with disabilities in the labor market, which represents a population of 1 billion people in the world, as you know. After that, we identified as a key trend that digitalization is here to stay and decided to continue analyzing this from the perspective of disability. So in this publication that we present today, we start doing that, and then the pandemic came at the beginning of 2020. So we saw that this was accelerating all sub-trends that comes linked to digitalization. For that reason, you will see some section devoted specifically to the impact that COVID-19 might have on the field of work for people with disabilities. So the report we present today is action-oriented and has been prepared by analyzing more than 60 sources of information and also by making consultations with key experts. These pages also include examples of initiatives that had been adopted by companies, the public sector, and civil society organizations that show the way forward. Here you can see the structure, basically, of the document. So you will find at the very beginning some figures and statistics about the current work situation of people with disabilities, and then we dive into the digitalization as a trend itself and the main technological drivers of the digital transformation and the growing industries, such as, there are many others, but 5G, cloud computer, the Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, or others. So they have powered some industries such as biotechnology, telemedicine, renewable energy, robotics, cybersecurity, or autonomous vehicles. So in the chapter 3, you will find how digital transformation implies structural but also organizational changes in the labor market within companies, but also across different sectors. In this chapter, the 4 main impacts of the technological revolution in the world of work is discussed, as well as the risks and opportunities for people with disabilities for each of the scenarios we have identified. And then in the chapter 4, the publication focuses on the main levers for the digital inclusion of people with disabilities at work, and how to promote digital skills and digital employment for people with disabilities while ensuring accessibility. If digital tools are not inclusive and accessible, as you know, people with disabilities will find barriers at every step of the employee life cycle, from online recruitment, which is often not accessible for some persons with disabilities, to performing the tasks required in a job position. So the final chapter draws basically a roadmap for an inclusive digital economy and the need to engage all stakeholders to succeed. With regards to the analysis of the current work situation, it is well known that the labor exclusion of people with disabilities is a loss of talent for businesses, and we have seen during 2020 that COVID-19 situation is intensifying inequalities as well. Although more organizations integrate disability as part of sustainability strategies, and we will see later on some examples, we will need more efforts to ensure a disability inclusive labor market, definitely. So in the chapter 2, you will find how the last decades digitalization has accelerated the path of change in industries, in the world of work, in society, in the way we interrelate with each others. And each of the technological drivers, such as artificial intelligence, machine learning, we have mentioned them before, blockchain, or big data analytics, presents different opportunities and challenges for people with disabilities. Moreover, the impact of digitalization varies among people with different disabilities, which is also a major challenge, we think. And then in the chapter 3, it makes an overview of the main impacts of the technological revolution of the world of work, with the associated risks and opportunities this present to people with disabilities. And as you can see here, this graph shows the main impacts of digitalization, as it is helping to create new jobs. It is leaving some occupations obsolete. It also promotes changes in traditional jobs and in recruitment processes, and we will find disruptive forms of work. And that the main levers to promote inclusion for people with disabilities are ensuring accessibility, promoting digital skills and digital employment for people with disabilities. In the next slide, we will find some examples of the challenges and the opportunities we can find. So here we have some of these challenges identified in this new world of work scenario. Goes from the lack of required skills, the difficulties affording technologies, or the lack of accessibility of digital tools and in online job platforms, to the invisibility and isolation that remote work may involve, as we have seen during the pandemic and the COVID-19. On the other hand, some of the opportunities we foresee goes from the opportunities in new jobs to flexibility that can improve work-life balance, or the new digital tools that can support people with disabilities at the workplace and can enhance reasonable accommodation, which is also seems a very good opportunity as well. So, as we have already mentioned, one of the levers for inclusion is to ensure accessibility as assistive technologies that can help people with disabilities to work in equal conditions as others, although we still find many barriers like incompatibility between digital tools and assistive technologies, and the lack of knowledge and how fast is innovation, which makes all these issues more and more difficult. But definitely we can say that universal design is key, really key, to ensure accessibility. Other lever for inclusion is to promote, as you can see here in this slide, digital skills among people with disabilities, such as reskilling and upskilling people with disabilities to access new jobs, and to be aware of how lifelong learning is essential, shifting the responsibility of being qualified from individuals to public administrations and companies. And for all society, not only people with disabilities, but digital technology professionals should be trained as well in accessibility, definitely. This is a matter of all of us. And finally, well, promoting, as you can see here, the digital employment of people with disabilities, engage people with disabilities in the development of tools, design, and new jobs can be of greater impact. Some of the good practices that you will find in this publication includes, well, many companies and different organizations such as Amalitech, Leonard Chisar and Ilunion, Fundación 11, Conference of Social Councils of Spanish University, the COE Foundation, Microsoft, Indra, and the Spanish Association of Foundations. You will find some of the good examples illustrating what we want to say in each of the chapters. And well, as this is an action-oriented publication, you will find also a non-exhaustive list of stakeholder actions, which are named here, going from public authorities, corporate sector, or people with disabilities and their representative organizations. But I would like to mention as an example that the European Commission is promoting various initiatives like the Recovery Plan for Europe, the European Digital Strategy, the Digital Europe program. All of them aim at shaping Europe's digital future, as well as strengthening equality. So we have a very nice scenario. We have to look forward what is going to be the impact of these new policies. But as COVID-19 has demonstrated, fast adaptation is key. If technological tools are not designed in an inclusive way from the outset, in emergency situations such as the COVID-19, which we have seen during 2020, institutions and organizations will probably not be able to ensure that the measures taken are inclusive of people with disabilities. So the actions must be taken right now, from today. Well, it was basically all I wanted to say. I wanted to say thank you all of the attendants that are connected today. And now I will like to give the floor to Fernando Riaño, Director of Institutional Relations and Social Responsibility at ONCE Social Group, that will conduct the session today. Fernando, thank you for being today. It is a pleasure. The floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Teresa. And first of all, thank you for the invitation, and congratulations for your excellent presentation and inspiring work and document. A great tool in terms of inclusion and in terms of the future of work too. Thank you very much again. Well, it's a pleasure, a great pleasure to be here. We have very special experts today. Thank you very much, Nazrin Mani, Executive Director of the Global Apprenticeship Network, Catherine Norton, Director of the Human Disability Forum, the EDF, and Carlos de la Iglesia, Communication and Corporate Development Director at Microsoft Iberia, and very great expert in terms of accessibility in Microsoft. Thank you, thanks to all, and thank you very much for for being here. Well, we are meeting today to present a report on an inclusive digital economy for people with disabilities, and we will all agree that throughout these years we have experienced a digital revolution, which has been accelerated by the pandemic, where digitalization, teleworking, and technology in general have been a basic and necessary support to be able to continue working from our houses. Many of you are connected from your house, and for many of us, and for all those who have been able. It's no less true that if technology is not accessible from the beginning of programming, from the beginning of this design, it will be one more barrier, a new barrier, one more. It will be an obstacle like most avoidable from the beginning and without a greater cost. That's another true. But then there are other ways, other paths that are patches. Therefore, well-designed, well-applied technology is another guarantee of inclusion for many people, but it's not accessible. If it's not accessible, it will be one more swept. Today we are clear that after the health crisis, after this great crisis, we will have a huge task to do for economic reconstruction. All the countries, all regions that are part of the European Union have made a great effort to make available an amount of funds for reconstruction with an unprecedented in the recent history of Europe, under a motto: leave no one behind. Leave no one behind. Technology, digital transformation is and will be one of the pillars for the economic and social reconstruction of countries. But you have to always keep in mind that motto, I mentioned above: leave no one behind. That is not a phrase, that is not only a phrase, that is not only a quote, that it be a reality, and that everyone is taken into account in that reconstruction, inclusive reconstruction. To do this, it's necessary to ensure that this technology is accessible, that future of employment, of future jobs, Teresa mentioned previously, take into account the needs of people with disabilities to ensure their inclusion, and that this same technology does not pose a new barrier, another barrier again. For example, on the Foundation, in the beginning, or at the beginning of our Inspiring project, worked to eliminate physical barriers as its main objectives for accessibility. But nowadays, without forgetting physical barriers, mobility, culture, it's increasingly allocating more resources to promote research and innovative in technology for all, basing its projects on universal accessibility as a guarantee of usability and quality excellence, and that they reach and can be used by the greatest number of people, not only with disabilities, older people, others with specific needs, etc. Well, therefore, from the most basic to the most complex positions, technology is and increasingly will be a mandatory support to be incorporated into the competencies of any curriculum design. For example, other example that we have here in Spain, Ilunion Hotels is the only European hotel chain with all its hotels certified 100% accessible, and in many cases these hotels with more than 90% of people with disabilities among their employees. So They fulfill a double mission, among others. The first is to provide a service of quality to all its clients and customers, and on the other hand, being those services offered by workers with disabilities, relying more and more on technology. Well, in this report published by ONCE Foundation, Disability Hub Europe, with the support of the European Social Fund, takes a look at the current situation of people with disabilities by their needs when developing digital skills and what should be a global commitment to inclusion, supporting us in digital transformation, all of this, so as not leave anyone behind. Okay. I have a question for all, and the question, the first question is, well, what are, in your perspective, considering the content of the publication, what are, in your perspective, the elements that give it more added value? Nazrin, Mani, please.
Thank you, Fernando. I think that the really great thing about this publication, and congratulations to all of the team involved in the development of this document, is the fact that it really helps position and create awareness of the challenges and opportunities that the digital economy brings to people with disabilities. I think, there's a really great positioning in terms of opportunities. And I think when we talk about inclusive development, we really need to speak about what people can do, how people can access the skills and abilities even where they have disabilities, because it doesn't limit them often mentally. People are functional, they add value, they make contributions. And I think the document gives really tangible guidelines and helps the user walk a path to understand, because we use these terms: sustainable development, inclusion. What does it mean? And I think until you give people a helping hand within organizations, for example, the private sector, give them the opportunity to take these lessons, to take the good practice. I think the fascinating thing that we're seeing as the Global Apprenticeship Network is an increased demand for peer-to-peer learning. And by including case studies, by including best practice in this paper, the authors are also giving users the opportunity to see what can be done to build on existing good practice. There's no need to reinvent the wheel always. It's really about taking things to scale, and things that work can easily be taken to scale. And that's where that good practice and best practice really makes a huge difference. I think for me, having presented this paper to my private sector members, some of the key messaging has really been about driving the social dialogue, ensuring that all parties are able to engage meaningfully. And then for me, most important is the labor market alignment. Again, linking to opportunities, the future of work, the opportunities that technology brings. We're often looking at technology from a fear-based perspective, but I think we can see there's enough data to show that the benefits of this technological revolution can outweigh the potential negative impacts. So how can we leverage those opportunities and ensure that we take this inclusive approach to bring people with disabilities into the discussion in a meaningful way, not just through corporate social investment, but to build careers, to grow the workforce, and really to develop people, their skills, and make them meaningful contributors in society. So thank you very much for that.
Well, thank you very much, Nazrin. Catherine, from the EDF perspective and according to your great experience, your opinion, please.
Thank you very much, Fernando. Firstly, I'd really like to agree with Nazrin and to congratulate everyone on the report. And thank you for the invitation today to discuss it. The big added value I see is the timeliness of this report, because of what we've mentioned all through this session so far, is the acceleration of digitalization, which we knew was happening, but of course COVID-19 has turbocharged this. So this report gives us a lot of thinking a lot of focus on future opportunities, which also Nazarene pointed out is a very positive thing, looking for opportunities in the future to help us prepare for this big economic reconstruction that you mentioned, Fernando. So we've got ideas for how to approach the coming period and the reconstruction. And the last thing I'd like to say that I really appreciate in the report is how it addresses the complexity of employment and digital employment. For example, even if you look at the recommendations, they cover recommendations for public authorities, academia, social partners, organizations of persons with disabilities like EDF and the corporate sector. So it shows that to create inclusive digital workplaces, it's not the action of one organization alone, but cooperation amongst a lot of us. So I appreciate the report very much for all these reasons.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Catherine. And Carlos, please, your opinion as an accessibility expert from a global company like Microsoft. What are, in your opinion, the elements that give it more added value? Carlos.
Thank you, Fernando. Thank you for your invitation to be participate in this panel, and also congratulations to all the people involved in the production of this document. First of all, I would like to say that this is not a report. I mean, I think that this is really a roadmap, and the document provide a lot of guidance and recommendation to all the companies, to all the organizations working on accessibility in order to define and design the road in order to improve the inclusion of people with disabilities. So this is the first point. Looking into the report, there are three areas where that I would like to highlight. The first one is about technology, because Microsoft is an IT company, a technology company, but after reading the document, it is important to highlight that technology per se is not enough. And this is really important because usually we think that providing accessible technology to people with disabilities is enough. That if you provide accessible technology, everything is done. And this is not the truth. The truth is that you need to take into account other different aspects of for instance, skilling on technology, the culture of the organization, the working conditions. So it's important to take into account all these different aspects and not only the technology, even if technology is and of course, accessible technology is critical. The second area of finding that I would like to highlight is that, of course, COVID-19 is changing everything. And we are seeing how we are facing challenges, important challenges in terms of the workplace. So again, we need to reimagine how the future of work will be, and we need to think on work-life flexibility and the next chapter in this idea of working in a different way, mixing working from home, working from the office, and the most important topic here is that what this means for people with disabilities. And then the third highlight is that companies are changing their approach, their commitment with regarding talent acquisition. And then the digital skill gap is growing, is being more and more broad, and then companies are changing their approach in order to recruit the talent that they are looking for in order to make their digital transformation true. And for sure, people with disabilities should be included in this new way of recruiting talent, acquiring talent, and also reskilling or upskilling the talent that is available in the market.
Okay, Carlos, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Nazarene, very quick. Well, from your experience, from your great knowledge, and from global perspective. Well, what would be your advice in terms of ensuring that persons with disabilities have access to the digital skills required by the changing labor market? Please.
Fernando, thank you very much. And that's such an important question because it's actually a really long-term position that we need to take when we look at this. It really starts from our schooling systems and runs right across through the labor market because we need to look at our curriculum and ensure that our curricula are aligned to forecast what the needs of industry might potentially be. And I know people are not fortune tellers, but I think we really need our education systems to see what kind of technology is coming down the line. How can we adapt our curricula to ensure that even vulnerable learners like disabled learners are included in the delivery of these programs, and not just in small numbers. You know, if I think about my personal experience, I'm South African, GAN is global, working across developed and developing countries, but we always see small percentages of disabled learners being included in programs. And how do we start ensuring scale and rapid scaling? The other is ensuring that our skills frameworks, our qualification frameworks in countries, our skills policies really adapt to this. So we start recognizing the potential of people with disabilities. And then when it comes to training within the labor market and inclusion and working, I think, you know, on-the-job training is key. As the GAN, we promote work-based learning because learning is lifelong. You do it throughout, you have to adapt, you have to be resilient. And I think there's probably hardly a section of the population that doesn't realize the value of resiliency and adaptability at the moment. But I think more so our disabled community, because they've always had to do it. They've always had to face challenges that seem to be insurmountable. I think the policy alignment issue is critical, and Fundación, you know, you work across countries to ensure that policy frameworks include positioning and inclusion. I think also very important is shifts in employment practice. So employers need to put inclusion front and center in the same way that they look at sustainability issues, environmental issues. How do we ensure sustainable inclusion of marginalized groups as they do with the gender issue, with the poverty issue? Very important to put disability front and center. So for me, ensuring ongoing support, having a fully fledged environment, this enabling environment that creates the opportunities and meaningful opportunities, that is critical to ensure that we can take this research and really make it implementable quickly and rapidly. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Nazrin. Question for Catherine Norton. Catherine, what are the key aspects that you could underline and you want to mention in advancing towards a more inclusive digital world of work for people with disabilities in the European Union?
Thank you very much, Fernando. The first thing I'd like to mention is a little bit related to Nazrin's point on the enabling environment. We've had in the last years quite some progressive improvements in legislation. So you saw in the last years, for example, the European Union adopted the European Accessibility Act, which actually addresses in a very comprehensive way ICT products and services. Also used, it will also be have an impact on accessible digital environment. So we're talking about computers, smartphones, and all the related materials that people use for work. The Web Accessibility Directive of the European Union was also an important piece of legislation. It concerns public websites, but also intranets for employees are included in the Web Directive. It also means that the public authorities and related state agencies have to have an accessible website for the general public, but also for their employees, which means that people are not likely to, well, in the future when it's implemented, when it's enforced, that people will be able to take a job and work remotely and have the same access to the digital working tools as all other employees. We also have things in place like the Public Procurement Directive in the EU, which has the obligation to take into consideration accessibility in technical specification of public contracts. So this isn't fully enforced, but in reality, it means that within public procurement, that actually this relates to a huge amount of government spending to ensure there is accessible purchasing, accessible procurement, which will create that more enabling environment for people with disabilities to be able to work barrier-free. And all these policies and pieces of legislation are underpinned by the use of European standards, which harmonise how accessibility really needs to be done. Because we all know it's one thing to say to make your website or your internet accessible, but as Carlos will tell us all, to actually do it and put it in place in your software and hardware is something else. And so we also have we can't forget that we don't only live digital. So you can have an accessible intranet, but you also need to be able to have an accessible front building of your office. You have to have accessible transport. You have to be able to find affordable housing near your workplace. So we're not only going to live in the digital world, so we have to remember keeping to build on the legislation for the built environment and transport as well as ICT. So another development, an important development, which I'm given a little bit of a tip to move on. So I'm going to say that something that we really want and we want to expect to see is involvement of people with disabilities through their representative organizations as the new digital working future is developed, and also proper funding and investment in all the things, the levers for change, which are mentioned in the report, ensuring accessibility, promoting digital skills, and promoting digital employment. This all requires investment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Catherine. And the last question is for Carlos. Carlos, from the business community perspective, what is the role that companies in the digital sector can play to promote inclusion of people with disabilities in an increasing digital work context? Carlos.
Yeah, thanks, Fernando. I think that first of all, the most important aspect in the role that companies can play here is to build partnerships. This is critical because we need to work together with, government agencies, with entities, with NGOs, with everybody in order to understand the needs of people with disabilities, and then working in order to address these needs. Let me share with you, and you, Fernando, know perfectly the results of the partnership that Microsoft, in this case, is building with ONCE. In fact, we started to work together with ONCE and ONCE Fundación, I think 25 years ago. And I think that this is a good example and probably a best practice on how businesses and entities can work together and build a strategic partnership around accessibility. We have been working for the last 20 years in 3 areas. First one is accessibility, for sure, because we are an IT company, a technology company. We are asking ONCE and ONCE Fundación in order to get their feedback on the accessibility of our technology, in order to understand what areas we need to improve in our software and solutions in order to become more accessible. And then because of this collaboration, we are improving our technology, and we are also making our technology accessible by design. That is something that you have also mentioned before, Fernando. We need to work since the beginning of the development process, and not at the end of the process. So accessible by design. The second area where we are collaborating with ONCE and ONCE Fundación is on education. For us, it's critical to ensure, and you have also mentioned this, to ensure that no one is left behind. And to help teachers in order to provide them with the accessibility tools that they need to work with the students with disabilities. Could be at the school, K-12, could be at the university, everywhere. So for sure, we are also working on education and providing these kind of tools to teachers. And the third area is related with this meeting, that is employability, of course. And here I think that there are two aspects that we are working with ONCE and ONCE Foundation that could be also good examples for other companies. The first one is workforce reskilling or unskilling. And this means from digital literacy to technology certification, from the basic to the most complex training. And this is, again, an opportunity to people with disabilities also to improve their employability and to get a better job in the market. And then we need also to work with the recruiters. And we need to train the people who are acquiring talent in the market, who are looking for talent in the market. And then we need to explain them that they can also look for great talent among people with disabilities. And then this is the other area where we are also collaborating with ONCE and ONCE Foundation.
Well, thank you very much, Carlos. Collaboration with Microsoft or collaboration with the International Labour Organization or this webinar are a great example of Sustainable Development Goal number 17, alliances and partnerships. And I would like mention this collaboration and these partnerships. For ONCE Foundation, for the ONCE Social Group, the alliance with the European Social Fund is very, very important. An alliance of more than 20 years where we have been working together for the labor inclusion of people with disabilities. And it's thanks to the ESF, the European Social Fund, that we can continue working to transform society that it's for everyone, and that job opportunities with digital skills can be inclusive. At ONCE Social Group, we firmly believe that ability and attitude are more important than disability, and that inclusion is an important pillar of the new scenario around the digital economy. Our commitment in terms of inclusive economy, in terms of digital and inclusive transformation goes beyond Spain, with the participation of more than 190 countries and more than 1,000 delegates. We will organize the World Blindness Summit in next June. And this June in Spain, we will be part of another alliance. We hope that circumstances will change, and I hope we can go beyond the online format and go to the traditional format. Well, both the European Social Fund and ONCE Foundation have bet from the beginning on training for employment, reinforcing the work skills of people with disabilities to incorporate these skills into their curricular designs. And today and tomorrow, they will be a basic competence, no longer complementary but essential when it comes to tackling new jobs. And those not so new but transformed and adapted to this digital revolution, this reality. But it's for everyone, and I repeat, without leaving anyone behind. Okay, thank you very much. Thanks to all the people that have made possible this webinar, this session, the report, and that we have now presented. Thank you very much for your teams too, and to all the people who have been participating in this webinar. Thank you, and I hope we keep in touch. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much to this great panel from the perspective of the Zero Project. I think you did an excellent job in making this full blown circle that is needed to understand what is needed to create this inclusive digital economy. Special thanks also to Stefan Trömmel from the International Labour Organization. And Stefan, you're live with us here. Welcome. We have some 4 minutes to give a wrap up. Welcome, Stefan.
Hello, Michael. Thanks for having me with you.
Thank you. So, Stefan, we watched this now together. You in Geneva, I suppose, here. I'm here in Vienna. Anything that you want to add? Anything that might a little more elaboration when you saw what had been said?
Well, yes, a few things. First, just to mention that the publication, we are launching it today. So, I mean, we really were waiting for the Zero Project Conference to use it to launch a publication. My colleagues have included in the chat of the session and on the community wall the link to the different, I mean, we have different links on our different websites of the different partners. So please have a look at the publication. I think as the panelists said, I think the timeliness is important. We decided to zoom in on the digital economy when the pandemic came. We just felt that this whole acceleration of the digital economy what's going to happen now. We think it's action-oriented. It provides a roadmap, like the colleague from Microsoft said. And I think what we are trying to say, I mean, we are hearing now at your conference, Michael, we're hearing a lot of amazing solutions that will help persons with disabilities to work. But I would highlight two big challenges, which to some extent we try to address with this publication. One is we need to remember also always the context of a developing country. Not always these amazing solutions that we are hearing about these days are immediately available and affordable in a developing country context. And at the same time, what we also feel is that, yes, these solutions will help people with disabilities in their work, but are we ensuring that enough people with disabilities are having access to these new professions that are growing, taking advantage of the opportunity? There's a huge mismatch between demand and supply on some of these jobs, cybersecurity, data analysts, at all different levels. And I think if we are successful all together, and I think that's the other big message, it's a partnership approach, the whole project. I mean, our publication is again a partnership approach. We had this more than 20 different experts from different organizations. So we really believe in partnership. It's the only way forward to address this huge challenge. But we really need to work together in particular to ensure that a significant percentage of these new jobs go to persons with disabilities. And that, of course, means a significant investment in digital skills. That's why it was so important also to have our colleague from the Global Apprenticeship Network on the as part of the advisory committee, but also on the panel today. The big message coming out of the UN, as you know, Michael, is building back better. We need to have a building back better that takes us out of the crisis. The test that we are having now is, will this building back better, will it be disability inclusive? Well, we have a lot of top-level messages in that direction. I think we are much better prepared. If this same situation would have happened 10 years ago, it would have been much worse. But now we have a level of commitment in the private sector, as you very well know. We have a lot of knowledge, as we're seeing in the conference. But I think we still have a huge challenge to make sure that in all these investments, we heard about the amazing amount that the EU is investing to recover the economy. Bigger challenge, of course, in developing country context. But in all countries, there are these recovery plans. Now, the big question is still how much will people with disabilities be central in these recovery plans? I think that's a challenge that we all need to address together. Back to you, Mike.
Thank you so much, Stefan. One final recommendation: don't hesitate to post the link to this great report in the community wall of the Zero Project conference in the chat. Use all the thousands of participants to share, because this is what we're here for. It's about sharing. It's about learning. Please,
we have done so.
Don't hesitate. Also tomorrow, Friday, do it, please. Yeah. Okay, thanks, Stefan, for this session. Thanks for the great cooperation. I think we see more of each other in the coming days. And with this, I'm closing this panel here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mike.